On the agenda tonight, we're going to be discussing Rory Gallagher and his performance of Shadow Play back in 1979. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. This is the all-access re-edit of the video that I did with Donal, and this is because sometimes there can be copyright restrictions that are regional, so people can see the video in one country and other people can't see it, and it's just due to having the original Rory Gallagher performance audio on the video. So with this edit, with the audio taken out, it means that this video will be available on the channel in every country and it will never be subject to any copyright claims or restrictions or blocks. If you want to play along at home, I'm going to put the link to the video that Donal and I watched in the description below and also pin it to the top of the comment section so you can click on that and watch the video that we are referring to with all of our different points that we do bring up. But first of all, let's get a little bit of background information on our guest tonight. Donal Logue is an actor, director, producer, writer, and of course a huge guitar fan, as well as getting his fingers on the fretboard himself. You'll have seen him starring in many movie roles over the years, including TV series such as Vikings, Law & Order, SVU, Gotham, and many others. Hello Donal, thanks for joining me tonight for the analysis video. How are things over there?
Phil, they're incredible. Thank you for having me so much. I'm a huge fan. You know this because I reached out to you, and I was complimentary of your analysis videos on Twitter, and I found that I have so many friends who feel the same way. So this is really exciting for me, and thanks for accepting my request of Rory Gallagher track.
Absolutely no problem. And getting into Rory Gallagher, we're going to be taking a look at his performance of Shadow Play. Such an energetic start to the performance, Rory all over the stage and putting everything that he has into the live performance as he always used to do. And Donal, what are your thoughts on proceedings so far?
What I loved about in this track too is, first of all, he decides, and he has that understanding with Ted and with Jerry that, you know, he's going to take as long as it takes to get into a song.
Yeah.
And he's going to feel, and he was feeling the crowd that night, and they were loving him. And if you're not in, sometimes it's hard to watch when it's just a videotape representation. But when you're in the room for a live performance, there's something about the molecular weight of the air that's shifting when everybody's together. And that obviously is what was happening. And he spent so much time just kind of in the intro to the song and walking around and having fun. And then when he starts to sing, which is something that you forget, he's breathless.
Yeah.
Right? He's which makes the vocal more endearing in this kind of way, because he's been actually putting himself out there.
I think the other thing about this performance is the way that Rory interacts with the crowd, but also how close the crowd are to the stage, and the fact that Rory's allowed to go out there and he can interact with them literally on a one-on-one basis. And it's something that makes you realize how times have changed, because now there's that invisible wall between fans and the artist, and sometimes it's a visible wall.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think there's a weirder thing sometimes too, where, I mean, Bowie kind of did it. Bowie's a monster artist and amazing. But there was this kind of thing when he came to America, and they did that thing where, with the costumes and the limos, in a way, building the invisible or visible wall that you're talking about sometimes ensures a kind of mythical quality that makes you, maybe Rory wasn't as big a star as he could have been.
Yeah.
If he didn't have that kind of approach, if he wasn't just wearing flannels and plimsolls but that was the sword he was going to live on and die on, and he had no, I don't think, regrets, or wasn't apologetic whatsoever for it. You know, that I think that he was, and it's interesting with Rory, because I think when you listen to a lot, you know, his live, he's one of those guys that his live performances are stronger than his than what he put down in the studio. Sometimes the mix was kind of low for the guitar, which is kind of strange to think about with him. I don't know how or why, but listening to the studio album, the studio release of a lot of songs, they're not as strong as his live version of them, I don't think. I don't know if that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
but he wasn't like, there are some people, they're probably scared to play live because it will show some deficiencies in their playing, and that was clearly not his. But I do think a big part of Rory's success too was, you know, well, not Jerry McAvoy, the bass player. I think the understanding between those two guys, it was just the shorthand that they had with each other, and how Jerry just instinctively knew when to bring it down or when to bring it up or how to build that. It's so critical. I mean, every great singer guitar player you're talking about, you know, and I would include Clapton in this because I think he's a phenomenal singer as well. But they you know, you had the Noel Reddings or Jack Bruce, or you had Ginger Baker, and you just had to have an incredible musicians on. If you're gonna live or die by a trio, you just need every component to be so strong. And I would include obviously Rush, and I mean Rory toured with Rush a lot, and they opened for him, and then in later years when Moving Pictures was so huge, they had Rory open for them, which was a nice kind of thank you. And Alex Lifeson was really close with Rory, and I would say, because it's fascinating with these trios, like they have to be so phenomenal to fill all of that space and create all that sound by themselves.
This is the thing that with rhythm sections, and there's, especially on the internet, a running joke of bassists being the lowest common denominator in a band, but people don't realize that a bassist, just the bass frequency goes everywhere, and it's not going to stop. You can't hide it. So if you've got a bad bassist, everyone will hear it. There's no way that you can't hear that bass frequency. So it is such an important instrument, obviously, for the foundation of a performance and being tightly locked in with the drummer. Once you've got that rhythm section down, then you can sit things on top of that. But if that rhythm section isn't a foundation, everything's going to fall apart. And it's certainly something that I try and spend a little bit of time pointing people in the direction of bass players and drummers, because it's all built on that. There's nothing worse than a bassist and a drummer being on totally different pages, and it just doesn't make sense, and all the accents are off. But then when you see a super tight rhythm section and everything, such as the accents throughout the whole song, throughout the whole gig, are spot on, it's just easy to listen to, and you forget that it's a live performance because you can get into the performance rather than thinking, oh, that was a wrong note, oh, that was a bit untight, oh, we missed that. You know, all of those different things that will just happen if they're not very good.
100%. Even, I mean, AC/DC, it's like bands like that. If it wasn't built on that foundation, they couldn't. Angus would have no place to fly, or Bon or Brian, and of course Malcolm Young, just an incredible rhythm guitar player. It's so important, and like you said, and people might not know necessarily why they're not into it, but that is the reason that they're being taken out of it without them necessarily knowing why. You know, but and I think probably bass, and I mean certainly drums, it's the most primal instrument, and it's the one that's the bedrock, and it's probably the first instrument that we listen to as people, and so it means it's so important.
Just to mention some of the technique on the fretboard as well, because we've got that blending of rhythm and lead at the same time, and that's an essential component, especially in a three-piece. Jimi Hendrix was another example of someone being able to do that so well, but also keep that rhythm driving forward.
And with the responsibility of singing, which you bring up all the time.
Yeah, this is it. It's having that, again, it's something that I think people do underestimate when you start singing and you're playing something at the same time, especially riff-based material. It is so much more difficult, but it takes almost a different part of your brain to separate two things. And it's something that I do mention when people are looking at the, top 50 guitarists of all time or the top 100 guitarists of all time. And the guys that are singing and playing at the same time are thrown in with the guys who only play. And for me, there is so much more when you start to take on the vocals yourself, because you can tune your guitar. It's always going to sound great if it's in tune. But singing and taking everyone's attention with your voice means now you've got to do the same thing that you're doing on the strings vocally. So when you start adding those two things together, I think certainly it's almost like another category that you could add.
Absolutely, because it's neurophysiological, and it's so difficult to maintain different melody lines with an instrument and your voice at the same time. It's just the science of the mind. It's some people are born super gifted, what I mean? And that's why I think he would have, I don't know what the real story was behind his audition with the Rolling Stones, but I know that, he was so married to the idea of being his own songwriter that he would never, it would have been hard for him to just be a kind of a guy in the Stones. I mean, it would have been amazing. Maybe his playing was maybe it would call too much attention to itself. I don't know, but but that would have been really interesting. But I'm always curious to hear how other people feel about Rory. I'm sure it's different in the UK, where there are probably more people who are aware of him, and he certainly made more of a mark over there.
We had that ending to the song, but then we start up again. And this is the other thing, that Jerry on bass, listen to some of his playing. He's playing with a pick here with a lot of alternate picking, but so solid the whole time. And we actually get a really good mix here of the bass, so we can hear everything that he's playing really clearly. And when you've got a bassist that is this solid, he can literally just keep it turning over. I think this was the last song of the set, so it is a big finish, and this is why we've got even more going on here with Rory taking off his guitar, putting it on the ground. Such an entertaining performance throughout, and the showmanship side of it as well is on another level, like we said, going into the crowd, but also just creating a spectacle out of the performance.
And then by the end of the song, it's so uncharacteristic of Rory to do this thing where he puts the guitar on stage, and he's dragging it across the stage.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was just neat to see him having that kind of fun. And I think also, like a lot of great artists, he's that amazing combination of extrovert and introvert. Because he was really there for the fans, and he's really putting it out there. And then when you talk to people who knew him in his private life, he was incredibly generous and kind, but he was also, he was kind of introverted in this way. And to me, that's just a fascinating study of the man and the artist. And it was just kind of sad that his life was kind of as short as it was, because and he was a candle that burned bright, but he had a lot to offer and a lot to give, and I really mean this is really important, and this was just my sense taken from being in Ireland so much and being around a lot of Irish musicians, was for those young kids coming up, and obviously for I would say for Thin Lizzy and for you too, that to see one of their own kind of make that kind of headway, it just, you have to have someone in front of you who kind of gives you permission that it's something that's possible. And he was the one who made all things possible and let them kind of dream as big as they were able to. And so his impact in Ireland is huge.
Something that on his side Like, I remember reading about when he got his 61 Strat, and at the time it cost £100, and it was as if it might as well have cost £1 million because of £100 back then in his situation. And then his mum saying that they're never ever going to be able to pay off this guitar because it was such a ridiculous price and burden almost to have bought this thing. But it's taking that jump. Like, somebody has got to take the jump first. And I think Rory was one of those guys that had such belief in what he was doing that he thought, right, I need this guitar. And then he said to his mum that, don't worry, I am going to be able to pay it back because I don't need to hire a rhythm guitarist, because with this guitar I can do rhythm and lead at the same time. So he already knew that he was, I guess he knew the direction that he was going in and what he wanted to do. And I think artistically that is such an important thing, but a rare thing for a lot of people to know exactly what they want to do, the direction they want to go in, and just to make it happen. And like you said, it is laying down a path that other people can follow you through, but somebody's got to put the path down first.
Right. And what I would say in regards to that too is that, I mean, it's funny with my own children. I had a professional football club here in Los Angeles, and I had a lot of guys living in my house from different countries, and my kids were playing soccer, as we call it, in their league across the street, and my youngest needed brand new cleats to be able to play this game. And I asked this guy, Emma Bentil, who was the captain of the under-17 Ghana team that won the World Cup, Emma, what kind of boots did you have when you were 9 years old? And he said, we played barefoot. And the thing is, with guitar especially too, is that you don't need necessarily the best instrument to start with. If you just get into cycling, you don't need the Tour de France kind of bike. But at the time that Rory bought the Strat, he had played all those years he was playing in show bands from such a young age that he was a professional musician. It was like he had shown that not only did he have the desire to do something, he'd put years into it already. And I'm sure at that point, there was nothing else that he was going to do on planet Earth except pursue music, because that's why he was put on planet Earth, And so it might have made it easier. I mean, I can only imagine from an Irish family, from Kerry, from the next county over, how hard it was, how absurd it seemed to spend that much money on a musical instrument. But that Strat that's around today is priceless. I know they were selling replicas of it in the Fender custom shop, but it's the most worn looking Strat, obviously, of all time. I guess Rory, he used to say he sweat so much, but he had there was something about him that was just destroying the finish immediately on this. Yeah,
he had a rare blood type or something, I read. Apparently. But I think just...
It's so cool when you see those guitars that are just, they... Willie Nelson and Trigger, whatever, it's just... The character of their guitar is everything. And all those guys have that one guitar that they love.
And it almost is like there's part of their personality in that guitar, and it shows the work ethic as well. When you're looking at performances like this from Rory, getting involved with the crowd and being so accessible, and he would have been doing gigs like this night after night after night, and month after month, year after year. Certainly what I get from the way that you describe people being in awe, but it's also being so close to their idol, somebody that they're listening to all the time. And not only that, but he came and stood right in front of me and I could poke him. It's just being that close.
And they look at each other to kind of check, is this real? Like, oh my God, this dude is standing right here and not missing a beat whatsoever. But it's really neat. I mean, one thing that, and I would say this about the Beatles too, when they went to Germany, and any band that are doing, and the way Taste was in London, and before that when Rory was touring with show bands, there's, like we said, there's no excuse, there's no there's no there's nothing that can replace hard work. And you know, the Beatles were putting in those 6-hour sets. And yes, were they creatively brilliant, and did they have incredibly cool ideas, and George Martin helped, but the backbone of it was they could go out and play 6 hours of music, and they played so much that they became so good at what they did, all of them.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of those videos that could go on for years. I just want to bring in Donal one final time just to say a massive thank you to you for joining me on this first ever co-analysis video that I've done. It is massively appreciated, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed
it. Absolutely. This would grow. This will grow. I will say that. Okay?
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, but... yeah,
right.
It's all good. But thank you for joining me and for your time, and I'll speak to you soon.
Okay, take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you guys for watching this video. And again, massive thanks to Donal for joining me in tonight's analysis. Keep your suggestions coming in the comments below for future analysis videos. Let me know what you guys think. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!